Breaking news tonight on TrendWave.
Finna suffer, but I'ma suffer. Loose man, she a ding man, man finna wear me. Where truth rise the wave. We never lost key, you never see she. Then I your face, we on her to the place, skin away me. Catch the wave of truth. From the Caribbean to the world. This is TrendWave News TV.
Good evening and welcome to TrendWave News TV. I'm Brian James. Tonight, the Caribbean is balancing recovery at home and upheaval abroad. Jamaica's hurricane recovery enters a new phase, with fresh government funding and ongoing assessments across hard-hit communities. The Trump administration's military operation in Venezuela continues to send shockwaves across the region, raising urgent questions about sovereignty, law, and what comes next for Caribbean diplomacy and security. And former Prime Minister Bruce Golding is sounding a warning about what he calls a dangerous global shift, while criticizing the muted international response. Plus, Jamaica's crime numbers are moving in the right direction, with major declines reported as the country heads into 2026. And in Haiti, violence is so intense that Doctors Without Borders has suspended services at a Port-au-Prince clinic, another grim marker of a deepening humanitarian emergency. Let's get right to it. Hurricane Melissa. Jamaica's recovery phases. Jamaica's recovery from Hurricane Melissa is moving through clear stages: response, stabilization, and now early to mid-recovery. And today, we're tracking what that looks like on the ground, in the budget, and in people's daily lives. So what happened and where the damage concentrated? Hurricane Melissa made landfall October 28, 2025, with significant damage reported, especially across parts of western Jamaica. Homes impacted, livelihoods disrupted, and infrastructure strained. The recovery pipeline. The stages Jamaicans are living through. Here's the reality of disaster recovery. It isn't one moment, it's a sequence. Stage A, emergency response, first days to weeks. Shelter, rescue, emergency food, water, urgent medical needs, rapid assessments, and restoring basic access routes. Stage B, stabilization, weeks after. Utility restoration, temporary housing support, identifying the most vulnerable households for targeted help. Stage C, early recovery, where much of the island is now. House-to-house damage assessments and grant processing, repairing homes, schools, clinics, community roads, restarting commerce and tourism flows. Support Jamaica, the Government of Jamaica's portal, describes island-wide assessments and an evolving national needs list for affected populations. Stage D, rebuild and resilience, months to years. Stronger building standards, disaster-proofing critical infrastructure, upgrading shelter systems, drainage, and community readiness. Let's now turn to money matters, where the funding is coming from. Two big tracks are visible right now. 1. Direct local government allocations. The Jamaican government has allocated $10 billion for relief, reconstruction, and restoration grants for those whose homes were damaged. 2. Regional, international disaster financing. A World Bank feature highlights Jamaica's rapid access to disaster funds, including major CCRIF payouts and additional support mechanisms that help governments respond before long damage assessments are fully finished. A separate recovery package summary also outlines multi-source recovery financing over time. In other news, tourism plus jobs. Reopening is recovery too. Recovery also looks like paychecks returning. Jamaica Observer reporting notes several resort properties affected by the storm have resumed operations, with additional reopenings projected into 2026 for some locations. And in the diaspora, support efforts continue, like Jamaica Night initiatives abroad, helping fund recovery. What still needs attention? The hidden hurricane problems. Even after the headlines move on, long-tail issues remain. Slow home repairs in low-income areas, agricultural recovery and supply chain disruptions, especially for farmers and food prices, mental health strain and displacement fatigue. One regional situation report on ReliefWeb describes the transition from emergency response into early recovery across affected areas and the ongoing needs weeks after the storm. Bottom line, recovery is happening, but it's uneven and it's personal. The next test is whether rebuilding becomes resilience, not just repairs. As we continue, Venezuela, U.S. military operation, Caribbean shockwaves. Now to the story reshaping geopolitics across the hemisphere. Over the past week, multiple major outlets have reported that the Trump administration carried out U.S. military strikes operations in Venezuela, including the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro, an event that has triggered intense global backlash and urgent questions about legality and consequences. First, clearing language for viewers. You're hearing words like invasion. What's confirmed in reporting is a U.S. military operation involving strikes and a leadership capture, not a conventional ground invasion in the classic sense, though the geopolitical effect is still massive. What the U.S. says is happening now, Reuters reports President Trump canceled a second wave of attacks, citing new cooperation signals, while U.S. forces remain positioned in the region. At the same time, U.S. enforcement actions at sea have escalated. AP and Time describe the interception seizure of additional tankers tied to sanctioned Venezuelan oil, part of a broader pressure campaign. The legality debate is loud, and serious major legal and policy organizations have raised questions about constitutional authority and international law concerns related to military action. This matters for the Caribbean because it sets precedent. If powerful nations normalize cross-border leadership capture, small states feel the ripple first, through security, sanctions, trade, and pressure to pick a side. CARICOM's position. The region speaks. Carefully, CARICOM issued a formal statement on the military action in Venezuela, reflecting regional concern and diplomatic caution. And this is where the story becomes intensely Caribbean. The region isn't just watching. Some islands are being pulled into the orbit of the crisis in different ways. A Guardian report describes how Trinidad and Tobago's role is being debated publicly, with major implications for CARICOM unity and regional norms. Former Prime Minister Bruce Golding's warning, the muted response. Now to the Caribbean's sharpest political commentary on this moment, coming from Jamaica's former Prime Minister Bruce Golding. Golding has criticized what he calls a muted international response to U.S. actions under President Trump, arguing that major countries appear reluctant to challenge Washington even when alarmed. What Golding is essentially arguing based on coverage of his commentary, power politics is back, openly. Golding's central concern is that global norms are being replaced by intimidation and raw leverage, where smaller states and even large allies fear consequences. CARICOM countries are in a vice. The report notes Golding's view that Caribbean governments face pressure from multiple directions: security, aid, visas, trade, and diplomatic relationships, making public opposition costly. Silence becomes permission. His warning is that when the international community responds weakly to dramatic actions, it normalizes the next one. How other leaders are reacting. We're seeing three broad styles of response across the world and the region. Condemnation framed as rule of law and sovereignty. A Reuters roundup describes reactions from multiple countries after the U.S. strikes, showing public pushback from key international actors. Institutional concern. Law, rights, humanitarian impact. Commentary from policy legal institutions has focused on constitutional war powers and the long-term precedent. Cautious diplomacy, plus pragmatic hedging. CARICOM's statement reflects careful wording, condemning destabilization while protecting the region's strategic interests. Why this matters for Jamaica specifically? Because Jamaica and the wider Caribbean sit near the fault lines. Migration pressures, security and trafficking routes, tourism, sensitivity, energy, and shipping disruptions. And there's also a policy reality. Caribbean leaders often have to protect their countries from becoming the next stage for larger geopolitical battles. Golding's message, in plain terms, if the world gets used to might makes right, small nations will pay first, and pay longest. Currently, in Jamaica, Crime is falling. What the numbers show now to a major development inside Jamaica. Crime, especially murders, has been trending down sharply, according to multiple official and local reports. A Jamaica Gleaner analysis points to a steep decline as the country heads into 2026, describing a dramatic drop after earlier year-over-year reductions. The Jamaica Information Service also reports the Jamaica Constabulary Force citing approximately a 42% reduction in murders and declines in major crimes, with expectations to sustain progress into 2026. And the JCF's own public statistics portal provides ongoing comparative crime reporting by period. The key question, why now? Most analysts point to some mix of targeted policing strategies, intelligence-driven operations, community interventions, sustained pressure on organized networks, and changes in specific hotspots. The public will want one thing, not just a dip, but a durable trend. The next 6 months will tell a bigger story. Now let's turn to our regional briefing. Haiti, CARICOM Summit, Economy. Haiti. Clinics closing amid violence. Doctors Without Borders has suspended services at a clinic in Port-au-Prince due to escalating violence, underscoring how insecurity is choking basic healthcare access. CARICOM Major Summit ahead. CARICOM's 50th regular meeting is scheduled for February 24-27, 2026 in St. Kitts and Nevis, an event now likely to be shaped heavily by the Venezuela crisis and regional security concerns. Caribbean economy, growth uneven, energy reshaping the region. Regional economic reporting cites expectations of stronger growth in parts of the Caribbean, driven by energy activity, especially Guyana, while tourism economies aim for steadier momentum. That's our report tonight on TrendWave News TV. Jamaica is rebuilding after Hurricane Melissa, step by step, while the wider Caribbean is being forced to navigate a new geopolitical storm created by Venezuela's crisis and the global reaction to U.S. action. As Jamaica rebuilds, the Caribbean responds, and global decisions continue to shape our future, one thing remains clear: staying informed has never been more important. If you value balanced reporting, in-depth analysis, and news that speaks directly to the Caribbean and its diaspora, subscribe to TrendWave News TV right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a major development, share this broadcast with someone who needs to stay informed, and join the conversation by leaving your thoughts in the comments below. This is Brian James, and you've been watching TrendWave News TV, where Caribbean stories matter. Good night and stay informed. I'm Brian James. Thanks for watching. Good night and stay safe. And
suffer, but I'm a suffer. Loose man, she a young man, morphine away me. Where truth rise the wave. You never lost key, you never see she. And now your face, we are met to the pace, skin away me.